So in this video, I'm going to show you something that I came across while using these Nest products with Nest Aware. Going all in with the Nest Cam and Nest Aware subscription means that you get the most peace of mind for the area that you're monitoring with your Nest products. But the caveat is that you're going to end up spending a lot of money for that functionality. And if you let the Nest Aware subscription lapse, you're going to end up with a $200 to $300 camera that is really no better than an old webcam set up to an old computer. Without Nest Aware, you basically retain only the hardware features of the camera, such as watching the live 1080p or 4K video, two-way communication, and the occasional notification that something is going on in the room that you're pointing your camera to. So, how did I come to this conclusion? Well, with all my reviews at Smart Home Reviews, I base everything on actual usage. With Nest Aware, I went and spent $500 of my own money, bought two Nest cameras, a Cam Indoor and a Cam IQ, set them up in my home, reviewed them, was impressed by them, and then let the free Nest Aware subscription expire. Then I went back and revisited these cameras to see how hamstrung my cameras were, and I was actually very surprised at how kind of useless they became without the Nest Aware subscription. And for craps and giggles, I then went and resubscribed to Nest Aware just to see, what would happen. I will note that for this review, for this comparison, I'm really focused on the peace of mind that setting up a smart home security camera in your home is going to offer you. There are a lot of other features that you could use these cameras from, but I am looking at it from the perspective of keeping your home safe. And yes, this is not Monty. My wife is home, so she is taking Monty out for a walk while I film this video. So you get my old pound puppy when I was a kid. Now, I love my Nest Cams with Nest Aware, but absolutely hate them without Nest Aware. Why? Because it's just so expensive. I could spend way less money on a D-Link Omna and generally get the same results. For the actual camera reviews, I gave them extremely high scores because the hardware coupled with Nest Aware is pretty awesome. But I'm going to warn you that I'm going to sound quite anti-Nest for the rest of this video because I started on the impressed end of the spectrum while using the Nest Cams with Nest Aware and ended up going to the pissed off spectrum when the Nest Aware subscription wore off. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to break down what Nest Aware actually is. I'm going to go through a scenario where I break down the cost of running two smart home cameras over a span of 2 years and 1 month. You'll know why I went with the 1 month. As well as elaborating on a cheaper setup. And the last thing I'll talk about is what happened to me after I resubscribed to Nest Aware. And it's going to be something important for people who think they can kind of game Nest Aware, and you really can't. So if you're not exactly sure what Nest Aware is, it's the cloud portion of the Nest Cam. Nest describes it as a boost of intelligence for your Nest Cam. I call it a boost of sales for Alphabet, the parent company of Nest, as well as Google. Now for $10 to $30 a month, a Nest Aware subscription will net you between 10 to 30 days of 24/7 cloud video recording. You can create and share stored videos as well as time lapses. You can also set activity zones and get better alerts. And if you buy the expensive Nest Cam IQ, you get facial recognition. Now for cloud storage, based on the plan, it's either 10 or 30 days backups of 24/7 video recording. This is going to be handy for the occasional time when you think something might have happened. Now without Nest Aware, you get 5 hours of activity tracking. Not videos, just these tiny clips that show you that something has happened, and most of the time the clips don't have anything in them. So it's either 5 hours of really bad activity tracking or 10 to 30 days worth of continuous tracking. There's kind of no middle ground with Nest Aware or your non-Nest Aware. So in the instance where you've got this at your remote home or somewhere where you're not there for on a day-to-day basis, then the 10 to 30 day plans make a lot of sense because, well, there's an eye keeping track of whatever's going on there. It might even make sense for the office worker who leaves at 8 and arrives at home back at 5 p.m. Say somebody breaks in at 9. Well, the 5 hours of activity tracking with the non-Nest Aware setup isn't going to get you anything. But let that sink in. Is that you've paid $200 to $300 for a smart home security camera, and it's not going to do anything unless you subscribe to Nest Aware. Just let that sink in. That's kind of a kick in the nuts, my opinion. Next feature, sharing videos and time lapses. Now this is a handy feature that allows you to share whatever good or bad things that's going on in your home. I can really see the appeal of getting a notification that something is going on in the living room, and you check your Nest Cam and you find a family member falling while putting on their shoes. That's a funny video you can share. Or if you're a parent, you can set your Nest Cam right in the middle of your kitchen and watch your kid eat icing off a cake. And I'm not making this up because you can just find this photo on Nest's website. But if the goal is to keep you, grounded, give you a peace of mind that your home is being protected, then being able to share when something bad happens is probably going to be very important. That's a great reason to get Nest Aware rather than watching your kid eat icing off a cake. The next feature is the activity zone. Now, being able to set activity zones is quite handy, especially if you're using a Nest camera to monitor a larger room instead of a cake. You can pick a window or door to be notified about movement in or around the door or window. Now, without Nest Aware, my Nest Cam indoor is going to trigger on anything that moves in the field of view. So Monty walking around is going to trigger it. Me sitting in the chair is going to trigger it. Getting a jacket and going off outside is going to set off a notification. If you live in a very full household, this might get annoying if you don't set your notifications right. I will say that the notifications with Nest Aware, there's a bit more intelligence to them because the frequency is much lower. To see an example of what I mean, check out the main Nest Cam Indoor versus Cam IQ review where I set up two cameras side by side and track how many notifications I get. Now this Nest Cam IQ has facial recognition, and if you watched my previous review, you'll know that I'm very impressed, almost fond of this feature in the Nest Cam IQ. The question you really have to ask yourself is how important is it to recognize faces in the general scheme of monitoring your home for security purposes? If something bad was to happen, there's still a good chance you're going to be able to capture that person's face with a normal security camera. You know, I can see it being useful in certain cases where a family member brings a new friend into the house and you get notified of this occurrence, but that really just seems like such a fringe benefit. So those are the features of Nest Aware. And I'll be honest with you, they're nothing groundbreaking. There's nothing that leaps out of my mind. They're all generally very useful, but from my perspective, most of that stuff should just be baked into the hardware and the software of the product. Like it's already $200 to $300. Like basically without Nest Aware, you're not getting a whole lot for $200 to $300, which is crazy to me. Let's expand this scenario out a bit more. So I'm going to talk about using both these cameras in my house over a span of 2 years and 1 month. How much is that going to cost me? Well, first of all, you need to buy the cameras. So for the Nest Cam IQ and Indoor, you're going to spend about $500 US. With each camera, you get 30 days free of 10-day Nest Aware subscription. This is why this scenario is 2 years and 1 month, just to make the math a bit easier. For the 10-day subscription, it's going to cost $100 a year for one Nest camera and only $50 for the next. Now, this sounds like a very reasonable 50% discount, right? I contacted Nest and they said it was a 50% discount, but in reality, if you check the plans, it's $50 off, not 50% off, not a 50% discount, $50 off. For the 30-day subscription, it's going to cost $300 a year for one camera and $250 for the second camera. Again, only $50 off, not 50% off. So over 2 years in total, this entire setup is going to cost me between $800 for the 10-day plan and $1,600 for the 30-day plan. The question you have to ask yourself, is your peace of mind worth that much money over 2 years? Especially if you know that you can basically get the same functionality with different hardware at a much lower cost. But if you've been watching my reviews lately, you'll know that I'm a big fan of marketing fluff, and let's kind of spin it around and say, for less than a cup of coffee, $2.19 a day, you can provide your home with great security. $2.19, that's it. How much is that worth to you? But let's break it down a bit more. $2.19, that's about $66 a month. And that's getting pretty close to the minimum payment plans for other security systems by Vivint and like ADT. That doesn't make any sense to me. You get one camera or you get screwed by a different company that at least puts up, half a dozen different sensors in your home. Again, this is a decision you have to make. Look at the long term. Is it worth paying that much money for what you get? I'm thinking the answer is going to be no for you. Unless you have a lot of disposable income and you don't care, which I do not, so I care greatly about my disposable income. Now, what is a potentially cheaper alternative? Let's take a look at this D-Link Omna. It's $200 plus change for an SD card. The Omna has built-in activity zones into the app, and it doesn't require a subscription, and you can access the unit's SD card remotely, though the SD recordings are not in full HD. There's also no intelligent alerts, so you'll be notified of any movement in the activity zone, and also has no facial recognition. But at the end of the day, if all you're trying to do is figure out what's going on in your home, this D-Link Omna is going to do the exact same thing. And it's going to cost you much less over 2 years. Now, the only advantage, the real advantage that these cameras with a Nest Aware subscription has over something like a D-Link Omna would be in the off chance that, well, two scenarios. First one is a miscreant comes into your house, knows that you have a D-Link Omna, and turns it off, right? Then your problem isn't probably going to be the miscreant. He's going after something else in your house that has way more value, and you probably should have invested more money in a different security system other than a D-Link Omna. And the second scenario would be if your house burned down, because you wouldn't be able to find out, What caused it? Because the D-Link Omnia, all the footage is stored on the unit. So having the stuff up in the cloud might be more useful in that instance, but you have to ask yourself, how is that going to happen to you? There's such a small chance that that's going to happen. Here's the last thing I'll talk about Nest Aware is that if you think you can get away with resubscribing and then going back in time 30 days, no, you can't do that. Though it looks like all the information's there, the Nest app doesn't allow you to go and scroll through things that were in the past that weren't part of a Nest Aware subscription. So you can't fool them by thinking, hey, if my house gets broken into, I can easily just pay the subscription and look back 30 days. You can't do that. Apparently they've figured out that, that's a way around them screwing us out of our money. So if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel as I'll produce tons of smart home stuff over the next while. If you're planning on getting some gadgets, consider going through my links because it won't cost you any more and I'll get a small commission that helps me film further videos, because for this Nest Aware review, Nest did not sponsor any of this. So yes, I really did go spend $500 of my own dollars to get these cameras to tell you that, well, parts of it are a ripoff.